All right, so this morning I found an article on information overload. It gave me a lot of data. I'm not exactly certain how to put it together. So I'm going to start with both the overall transcript. It's talking about what it means, and then a talking point, and then we're going to shoot into the story. So when it was analyzing what I put into it, it came to down to this. The algorithms tailor information to individual preferences, creating isolated information bubbles where people rarely encounter conflicting views. I think that's why my channel does so well with a specific kind of people. The people that watch my content are ending up here after watching something like The Philosophical Gamer or the Epic Economist. And so you're being forced into a bubble where everything looks bad, and most of us aren't going to go to the mainstream media to see what their talking points are because their talking points aren't real. The gaslighting and the blatant lying and the one sided view on the job economy and how great it is. Well, when you keep telling people about how everything is amazing and how things are just going to get better, but then you look at your own circumstances and your circumstances haven't changed in your entire adult life, when people continually tell you about how low the unemployment rate is and how many jobs are being created every month, you don't buy into it. You look for an alternative universe to live in. And that's why channels like mine are becoming more and more uh, popular. And I mean, I look at some of the channels like mine and they're making lots of money. And it's there for the taking, that money. So this fragmentation undermines a shared foundation for debate, replacing productive disagreement with mutual comprehension or hostility. And I say that because when you don't agree with the way that someone thinks, like I just had to delete a couple of comments for yesterday evening's video because they told me to start a business. Every time you tell me to start a business or find a better job, those aren't solutions. Those are cop outs. They're the whole mentality behind pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you're going to be fine. Well, most of the proletariat doesn't have bootstraps. Most of the proletariat doesn't have a pot to piss in, and they're still left in the same world trying to figure it out. Because I also was looking through YouTube and I noticed that there was a couple of videos on how gas is running out, and I'm like, well, maybe it is, maybe it's not. I haven't heard anything about it. And again, when it comes to unpopular topics, the mainstream media isn't going to cover them because the mainstream media is an entertainment media. It has to provide the feel good issues for America. You know, for the people that still think that America is the best country in the world or that America number one, and yet will choose to only accept the information that confirms that America is number one. They go outside and they see the hundreds of homeless people in every direction, and you're just kind of like, even to myself, sometimes I look at the homeless people and they're a reminder that your lifestyle isn't real. Your lifestyle is only going to go until you run out of money, and then you're going to become like them. And so I would almost say that the homeless people are the ghouls of our world because they're like us and they once were like us because many of them were regular human beings, right? Until misfortune or mental illness forced them out onto the street to live an alternative lifestyle that most of us will eventually have to deal with. So, in the talking point that it wrote for me, this is what it put in there: how social media profits from division. Content that sparks strong emotions, anger, fear, or disgust is more likely to go viral as it keeps users engaged. This leads to an outrage economy where platforms profit from our arguments and divisions. Instead of solving problems, we're encouraged to argue endlessly with strangers online, fueling polarization without progress. Without progress seems to be the biggest talking point from there. Everything that we do online doesn't matter because it comes down to what are you willing to do to create a more fair system. We can talk about it on this channel till we're both blue in the face, or I'm three sheets to the wind and I'm falling over next to my desk. But the fact is that we aren't offering any real solutions. I don't come here every day to offer solutions. I come here to tell you that things aren't good and things aren't going to get better. And I have no idea how to make things better because, in order to make this system change and more functional to poor people, it has to be destroyed. And a lot of people aren't going to like hearing that. It's like, well, it's your fault if you can't make money in a corrupt system. That's really what it comes down to. That's what everything I've said on this channel for months, for at least the last 3 months, is the system. If you can't drive the system in a direction in which you funnel thousands or millions of dollars into your bank account, well, you're doing something wrong, because everyone around you in the mainstream media is telling us that everything's great and is just about to get better on January 20th. I don't agree with that statement, because if there were enough resources so that everyone could have them, we would be living in a society where the 99% were comfortable and the 1% were the homeless people. And that's not true. It's the other way around. More and more people are falling down into a more miserable existence. And again, it's hard to tell whether or not it's always been like that. And that's why this information overload is such a strange thing to me, because has when I think into the past and I think of my parents weren't working 2 or 3 jobs just to put rent over our just to put a roof over our head. My family had cars, we had a new house, we went on vacations. We went on a 1 month vacation every year when I was a kid. Every year, like clockwork, we packed up the big old station wagon and we went somewhere for an entire month, whether that was the beach, that was the jungle, that was wherever it was. We went away for an entire month. I have never experienced that in my entire life. Whether I have paid time off, because I know my parents didn't have paid time off, that meant that if my parents didn't have paid time off, they were making sufficient money from saving from their proletariat job so that they had the ability to not only pay their bills when they came back, but to actually go out and enjoy having a month-long vacation, which is a luxury that most middle class people do not have anymore. Yesterday, while I was watching the Epic Economist talking about the prices at Disney, I was blown away but by what a 7 day vacation costs, in the neighborhood of $5,000. And I'm like, that's the income of a middle class man for a month. Meaning it would take you saving every penny for a month just to take your family on a 1 week vacation. And the worst part about taking the family to Disneyland for 1 week is that a vast majority of them, when they came back, they would rack up debt from having to pay for overpriced food inside the park, because it's that outrageously priced. I mean, when you look at the price of food inside of a an amusement park, it's not for regular people. Almost everything in this world wasn't designed for, or isn't designed anymore for regular people. I never thought of going to Disneyland as a luxury vacation. For me, a luxury vacation involves going to Europe or going to see the pyramids or going to Australia. A luxury vacation to me involves a long plane flight and expensive hotel stays and fancy food. Going to the beach, driving to California for a weekend is not a shouldn't be a luxury, but it's coming down to that, because again, you're working for food and shelter. When all you're doing is working for food and shelter, everything beyond that seems to be a luxury. Eating anything beyond something that comes in a foam cup seems to be a luxury that the proletariat isn't supposed to be able to look at. If there's one thing that's really changed inside of grocery stores in the past 5 years, is the amount of food that people buy. When you're walking around, like yesterday, I went to go buy roach traps at Walmart. I bought 2 cans of soup, 2 cans of beans, and a roach trap. And I walked out of there with like I'm gonna say $30. There's one other thing that I bought. Oh, I bought toilet paper. And that was it. I was like, and I looked in my cart and I looked at the price on the register and I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like, it's unreal. And you walk around and you look, even at people with families, you look inside their carts and they're not buying much. Those carts, when I was a kid, used to fill up all the way to the top for like $100. $100 doesn't buy you any food now. All right, let's transition over to the story aspect of this really quickly because I'm running out of time to get ready for work. All right, so here we go. I sit here every night scrolling through my phone. It's not like I can sleep anyway. The bills, the noise of life, it's all just too much, so I scroll. I see it all. The perfect lives, the drama, the outrage, but you know what I've realized? I'm not living my own life anymore. I'm just watching theirs. This is something I strongly feel that is affecting more and more people. Because our lives are so miserable and repetitive, monotonous, we scroll through our phones on Instagram and Snapchat or TikTok, wherever you're scrolling so that you can look at the lives of people that aren't normal. Because no one's going to scroll through images of your life. Me chasing cockroaches in the kitchen this morning, the second I wake up, and they all scatter from the sink, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna wash them down with hot water, and then they manage to pop out on the other side and run away. I mean, despite their being simple, they're very fast, and to an extent, if they've been around this long in evolution, they're smarter than we give them credit for. Just like poor people. Regardless of how much society doesn't want them here, they're still here. And just because we don't want to see them doesn't mean they're not just sitting over there listening to me right now. All right, so here we go. Social media isn't just stealing our time, it's stealing our minds. Think about it. How often do you see something that actually makes you want to do something? No, what we're really doing is sitting still, swiping away, letting the algorithm decide what we care about. It's all designed to keep us watching and never acting. I would say that that's an accurate portrayal of what social media is. It almost turns you into a zombie. You keep scrolling and scrolling. And I've seen this because I've had Gen Z workers for a few years now. They will sit there on TikTok and just scroll like if it's a trap because they're scrolling and scrolling and it makes them happy. The images that they're seeing on the screen fit directly with what they like. Their tastes are reflected in what they're seeing on the screen. And when they turn away from the screen and they look around at what's around them, their dinky apartment, their crappy can of ramen. Like, you guys notice that the artificial intelligence, when it creates pictures of poor people, by default, poor people is the cup of noodles. I don't ask it to put that cup in there. It puts it in there by default. When you guys are looking at whatever background images have been created for this post, it tries to recreate the rundown one bedroom apartment to a T, right down to the single light bulb in the room and the oscillating fan in the background. It understands where poor people live because if you ask it to create, like for this time, I'm going to ask it to create a backgrounds for very wealthy and very poor so you guys can see clearly what it thinks of people who live like this. All right, so here we go. And there's the thing. They know it. Companies, the influencers, the advertisers, they don't want us thinking critically or changing the world. They want us tired, entertained, and passive. They want us to believe that commenting on a post is the same as making a difference, that liking a video is the same as taking action, but it's not. Remember, people, like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends about this channel because I need money. I see the problem right here. Everyday poverty, struggle, the same faces stuck in the same places. But instead of organizing, instead of talking to each other, we're glued to our phones, arguing with strangers who don't even care about us. That's the thing that really gets me, and I've noticed it throughout the years. But I've made a video on NPCs, and every day that I walk out my door, you have the exact same conversations with the exact same people in the exact same locations every day. In about 2 hours, I'm going to walk into the office. I'm going to have a ridiculously stupid, unimportant, unreal conversation with Gen Z, and he's going to tell me about how boring his weekend was. And I'll tell him, if he asks me what I did, I'm just going to say what I always do: nothing. Sat in the dark, waited for the weekend to end so that the weekday could start again. That's pretty much how the proletariat lives. We're not doing anything meaningful. I'm not going camping in the mountains. I'm not driving to Sedona. I'm not doing anything. I'm not going grocery shopping. I think yesterday, what did I buy? I bought roach traps, I bought some water, and I bought a can of soup. That's my life. That's a pretty typical life of a proletariat man that doesn't have much. We may not like the fact that we live that way, but it's the reality of our lives. I mean, no one wants to drink tap water, and if you're going to spend 50 cents a gallon on a 5 gallon bottle of water, at least you have clean water. I don't know. All right, so and don't get me started on the outrage. Oh, they love to keep us angry, don't they? Angry at each other, at the wrong people, at the things that don't even matter, because when we're fighting, we're not fixing. That's the great thing about the 1% is that they've managed to turn the problems of poverty into a proletariat problem. The proletariat loves to fight each other, regardless of where they go. They love physical violence against each other. And a lot of it has to do with their circumstances. It is very easy to get a person who's grown up around violence throughout their entire lives. And this is something that I've heard from people who grow up in ghettos. Not one, not two, not three or four or five, but it is very common for people that grow up on the down and out to turn to anger, turn to harsh language, and soon it turns it into a full-blown fight, whether that's at an airplane terminal, the stadium, a bar. Schools are full of violence. It's just a matter of what you grow up in and how quickly you turn the switch to violence, because that's something I've told people for many years, is that the more civilized you grow up, the less likely you are going to be a person who's going to turn to punching other people, because you learn how to deal with negative situations without having to involve physical violence. I'm not saying that it doesn't have its place. I'm just saying that the lower classes have a tendency to not only enjoy it as sport, but also to participate in it. And it's something that we've become accustomed to. I mean, we invented the whole world star thing because it was so common for a certain type of people to do world star. I can't imagine that type of mentality like at a $80,000 a year private elementary school or private middle school or private high school. I mean, because the students that are, when your parents are spending $80,000 a year and you're not even in college yet, this is a place that is preparing you to be successful. And as I've said many times before, public school only prepares you to join the proletariat and work the bottom level jobs. That's why most of us end up in that trap of bottom level jobs. We didn't get the education that we needed when we needed it. And by the time we got to college, we got a liberal arts degree without learning much about the real world and not having parents that knew much either, because the people that we're looking up to for guidance and I don't know how to put this, as an example, right? When you think of your parents, when I think of my proletariat mom, a classic Susie Rottencrotch, and how she carried herself in her life, I've done the exact opposite of the way that my mom lived. I don't have any children. I don't participate in social activities in any conceivable way. I decided that I was going to become basically a hermit throughout my entire adult life, just sitting in the dark, waiting to see what happens. But I'm going to leave it there. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you guys in the next one.